Welcome everybody to Man Buns and Jesus. This is season 2, episode 5, I think. Um, and this is just your weekly dose of whatever the heck we feel like talking about. So I'm Josh Laborious. I'm one of your hosts, and here to introduce our topic and our guest is your other host, Pastor Ben Oschlager, the scraggly man from a very cold place.
It's not even that well, actually, it is kind of cold in Michigan. It's raining today. So today we are going to talk about one of the things that is perhaps most frustrating in any business, any church, any marriage, any family. That is communication. Boy, is communication a mess these days. It's impossible to talk to anyone because things mean two different things to two different people, and it's hard to know. Like, you almost have to state your definitions on things before you walk into a conversation. And that was like something you really only had to do if you're writing a dissertation, like the scrub on my screen, whatever direction he's in from here. But like, all of a sudden now it's just impossible to communicate with anyone on anything. And someone who shares that deep frustration with both Josh and I this afternoon, as we're recording this, is our friend, Pastor Sean Baker of Kansas. Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. No, yeah, I think communication is just something that I don't know if we're, and I'm not great at it either. I think it's just maybe busyness. Is that part of the issue? I don't know.
I think there are so many issues with this. And I want to throw in with Ben before we get a head of steam going. Sean is also our first repeat guest. So yeah, welcome back, Sean.
I should grow out my man bun.
Yes, you should. I'm an advocate for that. I'll start a petition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you're curious, if you like Sean this episode and you're a more recent listener, you can go ahead and back to season 1. We did an episode on sports, and he was our guest host for that.
Yeah, I think we talked about the Detroit Lions and how rough that is. Right?
Something about liking the Astros being a mortal sin or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
that happened.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's good.
But no, I think I've heard the excuse of busyness a lot for communication. Because, I mean, starting with the complaint of, like, people don't communicate. So they don't reply to emails, they don't reply to texts, they don't pick up the phone, they don't, like, there's some break in the communication. And a excuse for a lot of people is like, oh, I was busy. Sending a text message takes less than 30 seconds. Sending an email, if you have a desk job and you sit at a computer during the day, sending an email takes less than 2 minutes, unless you are writing a book. And no one writes book. I rarely receive emails that are longer than 3 lines. If your phone is attached to you, if you are a modern American, your phone is almost always within reach of you. You cannot tell me that you are so busy you don't have 30 seconds for a text or 2 minutes for an email. The only man on the planet, the only 2 people I would believe if they told me that are like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. If either of them said, Josh, I am too busy to reply to a text, I'd be like, you know what? You probably are. Okay, that's fair. Anybody else? You don't get a pass from me because you're busy. We're all busy.
Yeah,
30 seconds.
I mean, I think there's a few factors there. And play the other side of the coin. I think there's, like me, like I'll open a text and then I'll forget to reply. That's one. Or I'll type out the message and forget to hit send. Like, that's happened multiple times. And I'm like, oh man, I feel so bad. And the reason someone hasn't texted me back is because
you should.
I didn't text them back, right? I also think, like, it takes, especially with like a deeper conversation, like on a text or email, it takes time to like think what you're going to say. And so, like, for me, like, I want to know what I'm going to say before I say it. So I think that could explain the delays that Josh is talking about.
You're both wrong.
Oh, come at me, bro.
I think the bigger problem is that
That's an important preface, is saying I think, because none of us are experts on this by any means.
True. Yes.
Just want to throw that out there. We don't have any credentials for this, guys.
The real problem is impatience. So think about it. If we were okay, I'm in the middle of planning VBS right now. I've got a handful of volunteers already on board who are kind of helping with the planning stages and coordinating how many volunteers we're going to need, what kind of supplies we're going to need, those kinds of things. If I was planning this 20 years ago, I would have needed to have all of those conversations on a Sunday morning when I saw them in church, or I would have needed to pick up an actual telephone, which I still have a desk phone because I don't know, my church thinks they're a good idea or something. I would have needed to pick up that phone and hoped that I caught the person while they were home. Otherwise, I have to leave a message and then I have to wait and see if my phone rings when they happen to get my message. And that could have taken days. That could have taken days. But today, because I can text people, I just assume that they're going to see it and respond in a day. So I think more than anything, we've just gotten lazy and impatient.
Yeah, I think that's all. Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that.
Well, here's so here's the thing. Okay, you are correct. However, the standard has changed. So the standard has changed, and the standard has changed because of impatience. But the reality is, I believe it is fair to say there's a societal expectation of a 24-hour business day turnaround on any, and this is formal communication, right? This is, I'm emailing about something business-like, right? I expect a response within 24 hours. And a response is expected of me within 24 hours, right? If someone reaches out to me looking for an answer about the church and I don't reply in 24 hours, I regardless of whether or not it's right, the optic is that I am bad at communicating, or that I'm slow, or that I don't care, or whatever bad spin you want to put on it. So I'm not going to disagree that we're impatient, but the standard has changed to impatience, and we can complain about that all we want, but I don't think we're going to change the standard. I don't think we're going to get back to everybody plan out weeks in advance. Everybody get all your poop in a group and get your stuff together and give people a week to reply to you on any given thing. I don't think we're going to get there. I don't think that's a battle that we can win.
There's also such technologies as read receipts, Josh.
Yes, I've employed those recently.
There you go. Yeah.
For any of you who don't know, a read receipt is something that you can add to email. As long as you have if you have a Gmail, if you have an Outlook or some variation thereof, you can add a read receipt to your email. And they can't, once they open the email, they can't leave it without clicking a box to send the read receipt back.
I think you actually have to send the depending on what kind of receipt it is. Oftentimes there's one that says yes, I acknowledge that I've gotten this email, and then that sends back and lets the person know, hey, I've at least seen that you sent an email. So then the ball's kind of back in your court. But I think where I'm going with this, the kinds of things that we would want to send with a read receipt, or in a text message or something where you have the ability to know if the person received the message and has read it. I love the fact that Josh is an Android guy, because it means that I know if I text him, I know if he's seen my text.
It tells you delivered, read, or sent, delivered, and read. Those are the three like classifications Android gives you.
Do you have the option to turn that off?
Yes.
Yeah, you lose some other functionality if you do it though.
Yeah. So we can I feel like one of the other things that we tend to do with communication that is perhaps unhealthy is that we assume that everything is critical, right? It used to be you prioritized what messages you were going to send, and then the ones that you didn't need an immediate response, you might send as a letter, you might make a phone call, leave a message. You might just wait to talk to someone until the next time you saw them. But if you needed to communicate something to someone at that moment or on the spot, you either found them face to face or you called them and made sure that they answered.
Hunt them down.
Yeah, you hunt them down until you can deliver the message to them. But now everything seems to be I need an immediate response kind of communication. So I think on some level, we need to give people a little bit of grace and sure, if we send an email, just say, hey, do you see my email? You could throw a little law at them, give them a little guilt, and then bring them back with the gospel. It's all right.
Here's my thing, because I think the paradigm maybe is flipped here. If it's not critical, you wait to talk to someone about it. Don't send me emails that aren't critical. My dad has a rule. We had him on the show he will not reply to a text message unless it has a question or a an action step in it. Mm-hmm. If you are just telling him something, you are never going to get a reply from him. And I'm not as hardline as he is. I'll reply, I'll have conversations via text, but I think there's also not everything is critical. Don't send me a bunch of non-critical stuff, right? If we're just having a casual conversation, you can call me and we can have that verbally, or we can have that face to face. That's not a text message thing. That's not an email thing, right? I don't want non-critical emails. I have a whole separate inbox for non-critical emails that I get from all these companies that are discounts and stuff that essentially just goes straight into the trash can, right? So I would say the paradigm's flipped. If it's non-critical, it can wait. Wait until you see someone. Hold on to it. Don't send me an email that's not actually important.
Yeah. I think society-wise, with technology and communications change, we've talked about that a little bit. It's just kind of sad to see you used to have, like Ben was talking about, you used to have those human on human interactions. You were required to do face-to-face communication. Now a lot of even online shopping, they have the tech assistant that messages you what do you need, and you just you're talking to a robot to get
it's the evolution of the Microsoft paperclip.
Yeah, it's just
half the time those are bots.
Yeah. So I think everything's just distanced. It's the same thing with social media now. I mean, people post on social media things they wouldn't actually say in person.
They shouldn't. You shouldn't. If you're listening to this podcast, don't do that.
But it's distant. It's been distanced from human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So
I 100% agree.
A half step, and I want to hear what you guys think about this, because I think this is closer to a personal interaction than social media or a text or a whatever. Is letters, a handwritten letter. Do you appreciate getting a handwritten letter? Because I know my grandparents and my aunts and aunt, older generations, my parents love the handwritten letter, the handwritten thank you note. But when I send gifts to my brothers, I tell them explicitly, I don't want a thank you note. Send me a text to tell me you got it, right? So I make sure it made it through, but I don't want a thank you note because then I'm just going to feel bad that you put in this effort and I'm going to throw it away as soon as I get it, right? Like handwritten letters, they're nice, but my day is not made because I got a handwritten letter. So I want, like, am I weird or is it a younger generation thing? How do you guys feel about handwritten stuff?
I enjoy a good handwritten letter, but I might just be old school. I I think, to answer your question about society and this generation, I think a younger generation probably doesn't.
This generation, these whippersnappers.
They probably don't value it as much as, like you were saying, your grandparents
What do you
did.
mean
But
they? We, you are part of this.
dude, I'm almost 30. What do you mean we? I'm not young anymore.
You're
I'm
still a millennial.
You are still a
barely,
millennial.
barely. What's
What do you
the
mean
cutoff?
barely?
Isn't the
The
cutoff like
cutoff-
91?
No, the oldest millennials are like 40 now.
You're like dead center millennial.
No.
Yeah.
Millennials right now are
Yeah.
between like 25, 26 and 35, 36.
Millennials right now are between like 25, 26. My wife is oftentimes on the lower end of the border, whether she's either millennial or Gen Z, depends on which thing you look at. And the older end, some of them turned 40 this year or last year.
So Sean, you my friend are still a millennial.
It's like 80 or 81 to 96, like 95.
I didn't realize
it was
it was that low, like 81.
Yeah, no, all
like
of those articles
80.
about stuff that millennials are ruining, that's you.
Ouch.
Anyway, you were making a
ouch.
point.
Yeah.
You were making a point, Sean. We younger
I'm just saying.
generations continue.
Yeah. Well, I like a good letter. That's what I'm saying. I'll speak to what I know.
Fair enough. I'm gonna side with Josh here a little bit, and mostly just because like I know what it takes to write a handwritten note, and so when it's one that's like genuinely done because somebody appreciates something that I did or have done that doesn't normally receive thanks, I love those. But I don't need something for like a Christmas gift or even like a wedding present or something like that. Like, I just feel bad because I know you put the time and effort into writing it, and so I don't want to throw it out, but then I do, and then like.
Now my exception.
Wait, I have a question. Would you consider your guilt, both Josh and you, and not wanting to write back, would you consider that poor communication?
No, my guilt isn't about not wanting to write back. My guilt is I know you put in the effort to write this thank you note, and I'm throwing it away immediately upon getting it.
Do you write them back though?
For a thank you note, no.
Well,
if my little nephew writes thank you for the Legos I got for my birthday, no, I'm not going to reply.
No. What about
you're welcome?
What about like a genuine letter?
See, I'll say that's different. And this is what I got up to get for those of you watching the video. Well, now everybody knows this is not a dictionary. It's a lockbox, very cleverly disguised as a dictionary. And it is my "you don't suck" box. And I say that as if you should know what it is because I've met other people who also have these, so apparently it's not just me. But this box contains letters that I have received of people who are expressing, like, it's a genuine letter of like appreciation, or they're expressing how much they appreciate our relationship, our friendship. And those mean a lot to me. Those do. And those stay in here. And the reason it's called a "you don't suck" box is if you struggle with insecurity, like myself, sometimes you need to be convinced that you don't suck. And it's not a good look for you to like ask people, hey, I need affirmation that I don't suck. So you keep these letters, and if you feel like you suck, you go back and you read the nice things people have previously said about you to remind yourself that you don't suck and everybody doesn't hate you. So
Do you have one from me in there?
I don't think I have an I don't suck letter from you, Sean.
Oh, what's your?
I don't
Tell
think
me.
you've ever written me a letter
Use
about.
use new communication to text me your address, and then I will. I
No,
will
I
give you
do. I
old
have
school.
I have a couple printed texts in here as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
screenshot. It comes in handy. If anyone comes to my
I
house and steals
I
this,
remember
I will
our
be very
first.
sad.
Do you remember our first seminary, our first semester at seminary? You sent me a really nice text. I should have screenshotted it way back when, but I didn't, and now I'm gonna have to go back and find it. Do you remember that, Josh?
Vaguely. It was for
Okay.
Thanksgiving or something. Like
Yeah, something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like a newer version of a
Thank you for
letter.
being a person.
Yeah,
I'm thankful that you don't suck.
yeah.
Thanks, buddy. Unless you're talking to Sean, in which case I agree.
I mean,
guess. So
I was interpreting in modern language.
we got a little bit of a tangent there, but I want to circle back to communication, because really what this is a list of pet peeves and rants about communication. And here's a big one, and I think this has got to be a unanimous one: the reply all button.
Mm.
Do not reply all to an email unless it is actually like if you're on a team and you're doing like a creative project, or like I'm working with two incredible people that are doing most of the stuff for our VBS. And if we're sharing emails, that's reply all, because whatever information is being shared probably needs to be shared with all of us. But if I'm sending invitations to something, for example, if an invitation goes out to a circuit meeting, don't reply all that you're coming. The circuit visitor needs to know who's coming. Everybody else, you show up and you find out. Okay? And pro tip for all of those of you who are like, you're sending out an email and the replies are going to be sensitive, but you know there's that one person that's going to hit reply all. If you blind copy everyone on the email, reply all will still only reply to you. So that's a pro tip if this is also a frustration for you, but reply all is the bane of my existence. I hate it. I hate it so much.
I'd like to shout out.
You're going to disagree with me, aren't you?
No. I'd like to shout out the pastor in my circuit who does it ironically. He's actually the associate of my circuit visitor, but upon receiving the email about our next circuit event, whatever that may be, we'll send a reply all to everyone in the circuit, even though his desk is like 15 feet away, saying that he's going to be there or that he got the email or whatever it may be. So shout out to Pastor Dan. Yeah. Reply all button's a good one.
No, it's a bad one. That's the point.
No, it's a good, like, I'm glad we brought it up. That needed to be said.
Yeah.
So Sean, did I cut you off?
No, I was agreeing.
Okay. Cool. One thing that I want to bring up in all of this is why it's important for us to talk about communication and our frustrations about it in the context of a podcast that we are using to help people in their spiritual formation. If you
wait, are you justifying what we're doing?
Yes, but for a reason. Hang on.
We're not self-justified on this podcast.
They can't tell us what to do, but sometimes we need a reason for doing it. It's important that we know how to communicate with other people, because half of the faith, like half of our responsibilities in the faith, are either communicating the love of Christ to our brothers and sisters, like anytime that you goof, or your spouse goofs, or somebody in your family just messes up, like, you need to be able to effectively communicate that you forgive them, or say by chance that you have the opportunity to share the gospel with someone. It's a lot easier to communicate the gospel if you know how to communicate. The Holy Spirit helps with that. But if we're just terrible communicators, we never get back to people on anything. We pipe our frustration through whatever means of communication we use. We this podcast notwithstanding, if we like just practice communication terribly, then when it matters, it's going to be a lot harder.
Ooh, I got a segue that comes from that.
All right, let's hear it.
To another point of rantiness.
Okay.
Oh, can I
Go for
do
it.
a can I say something pastoral before
Of
you get on
course,
another
of
rant?
course.
Okay, so yeah, I totally agree with Ben. I think, part of our Christian living is so tied to our humanness.
A ghost.
Oh, his dog. I thought you said you saw a ghost. I'm like, what? What? Yeah. Where was I
Should
going?
maybe clarify that.
I did
yeah,
see a ghost,
Yeah.
but he's
That's
a dog
Josh's
and
dog.
he's alive.
You made me lose my train. Oh, it's so.
Sorry.
Oh, the faith is such a human. It's tied to our humanness, right? And that's part of being God's creation. And in order to do witness in the world, or communicate the gospel, or communicate forgiveness, I think a lot of those, even in a millennial world, I think are more effective in face-to-face communication. Like, I don't know anybody who's been effectively witnessed to via a text message um, or an email without that tangible element
Without
of,
some connection.
yeah, there had to be some connection before that, or some connection after
Yeah.
that. And I think that just goes to show, like, that human relationship is so vital and so important. And it's sad to see all the most human interactions go away, right? But
So, kind of connecting what you guys are saying, there's a book that I'm working through for class by James Thompson. Shut up. It's called "The Church According to Paul: Rediscovering the Community Conformed to Christ." And I'm withholding judgment on this book. I'm not going to tell you to read it or anything, because I haven't finished it. I had to read like 4 chapters, and you better believe I only read 4 chapters. But the thread that this guy is drawing is that in Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament, for anyone who's kind of unfamiliar, who's this Paul guy you're referencing? Paul wrote most of the New Testament. He was an incredible missionary. He did a lot of work for church in setting up church leadership. And so they're talking about how the witness of the church and the mission of the church in Paul's writing, most frequently goes through the community of the church. And he's talking about the most powerful witnessing tool is people looking at the church, seeing how the people in the church interact with each other, how they live as community, how they serve one another, how they love one another, and they're drawn into that. It's not someone preaching on a street corner. It's the incredible Christian community kind of having a gravity all of its own. And he makes this argument, and I think it's a fairly convincing argument from Scripture. All of this to say, what does this have? This is what you guys are talking about, is there's an element to our witness that is communication. And part of that is, yes, just our competence with communication, which is what we've talked about so far. It's the knowing when to reply versus reply all. It's knowing it's knowing how to deal with this stuff on a practical level, but also that comes into it, and that is what kind of filter do you use with communication? How do you kind of speak appropriately. And I'm gonna, and this is the rant that I promised was coming. Sometimes I will tell you, I'm replying your email and I'm typing one thing, I am thinking or saying something entirely different because your email frustrated me. Your email communicated to me that you didn't read my previous email, or you didn't even read the email I'm replying to you. If you ask me a question that I had already answered in an email you have, all you're really saying is, I didn't read your email and I would like you to repeat yourself. I'm not going to say that in my email. I'm not going to reply, wow, you're just really, you're not listening, you're not reading, can you read? I'm not going to say that because that would be rude. That would be inappropriate. That's not how we're called to be in community together. That's called a filter, because in my head I'm saying, I already said this. I can't believe you didn't read it. Come on now. Let's go. So there's my rant. My frustration is not actually reading emails, and then turning around and asking questions about the email that were covered in the previous email. This is a frustration for me because I don't send superfluous emails. If I'm sending you an email, it's because there's something important. Because I know it's like, yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling, but this is my frustration. I don't know if it's a shared one, but
Stop sending emails.
stop
Talk to them
sending.
face to face. So to branch off of your
No,
poll
here's
thing.
why. Here's why you send an email, so they can go back and look at it. I don't
You're right.
need. Yeah, if I'm sharing logistical details, I'm gonna send you an email so that you can look up the email and remember, oh, there's the address, there's the cost, there's the whatever. Okay? Don't come at me with this, Ben.
Hang on.
I'll fight you.
So one of the frustrations that you seemed to express, though, was when people
Is this
don't
a
read their
therapy
emails,
session
and it's
now?
not. Yes, it's exactly what this is. And it doesn't seem like your frustration is always related to logistical things. Sometimes it's just you are communicating on a subject and somebody doesn't read what you wrote. Paul, in his writing, multiple times communicates that he only writes because he has to. He would much rather do most of this stuff, most of the pastoral things that he's attempting to do through his epistles, face to face. And so, Josh, get off your butt and go talk to people.
No, my complaint is if I email you the address for this event and then you reply to that email saying, where's it gonna be? That's on you.
People are going to think we hate each other after this podcast. Sean, what do you got?
Ah, man, there's so much there. I feel like I should do some pastoral counseling with you two.
Sounds like there's reconciliation.
Yeah.
Josh clearly has some mental derangement. And there's the email thing we got to talk about.
That's what happens when you get two eagles, I guess. I don't know.
Hey,
Nobody knows what that means. Nobody knows what that means.
that is a topic on our list we're going to talk about. We're going to have Connor Wondrash on at some point, and we're going to talk about the
We
dead.
haven't talked about that yet. Oh, yeah. No, I
we
think
need more eagles on this podcast.
I think like what Ben was saying earlier, though, I think it kind of goes back to, I mean, all these technology tools, texting and email, like it's all great. And they're good tools to use. I just think face to face, like you can't replace a relationship with technology, right? That's ultimately what it comes down to.
You're 100% right.
Yeah. I mean, that's ultimate. I mean, and us being pastors, right? I think ministry wise is so much, I think it's so much better when I'm in person with people. I think you can communicate things better. And like, I think we maybe touched on this, but like when you're reading a text, well, how do I interpret that text? How do I interpret that period or that, exclamation point? When you're in person, you can read their face or you can hear their tone or, there's other indicators to let you know what they're saying in the words that they're saying.
On that, I want to do a favor to any of the older people who listen to this podcast. Okay, so, and by older people, I'm defining you didn't grow up with the text message being a thing. Okay.
You just called anyone over the age of 40 old.
I said older, not old.
What was the first text message sent?
I don't know.
I didn't have text messaging as a kid.
Okay, I'm
Did you have it by high
talking
school,
about
though?
middle high school. Anyway, so I'm about to drop some important information for you. When a younger person ends a text message with LOL, and there's the complaint, you're not actually laughing out loud. You are correct. But it is a way of communicating, I'm not mad, I'm not serious, this is a casual conversation. You end with LOL or haha just to say, like, there's no passive aggression here. There's no, it's keep it lighthearted. It's trying to incorporate that tone that you do get much, much better in a face-to-face conversation. But that's my piece of wisdom for you who may be texting your kids or your grandkids and you're like, why do they say LOL all the time? It's so that you know they're not mad at you.
It's the millennial punctuation for sarcasm.
Also, yes.
Yeah, I think when you're typing things, it just sounds more formal or more serious.
You just gotta use the word bruh in your text.
Bruh, help. Yeah, I do that. Yeah. I do that all the time. Use a lot of GIFs. GIFs help.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
It is GIFs, not GIFs. Come at me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's true.
We're good.
That's
We're
true.
good.
GIF.
Okay.
Pick your battles.
So, any other frustrations with communication that we still have to cover? Does meetings that should be an email count? Is that a frustration?
Okay, here's my last one, and maybe we can end with this one. Read the room. There are so many things that I love hearing from people when I'm not hearing them at the end of a long meeting. Or at the end of a long conversation, or case in point, Sunday mornings, at the end of 2 services and Bible study, having gotten up at 5 a.m., I am oftentimes exhausted. I'm ready to go take a nap. I'm ready to eat lunch. I love hearing about your kids and your grandkids. But please keep it succinct. Because otherwise I may fall asleep on you in the middle of the conversation. Communication is a two-way road, and if you can tell that the other person is not in a position to communicate effectively with you in return, let it go. Let it go. Just like we need to let this podcast go.
Yeah. You got any last rants, Sean?
No, I would just circle back to what I already said. Face to face is the top of the line. Communication is good. Face to face is better. I mean, technology is good. Face to face is better.
Yeah. In case our listeners can't tell, Sean's not a very ranty kind of person.
No, we have to on here so that we have someone who's calm and a voice of reason.
Person of grace, person of mercy. Yeah. Any of those titles could fit. Yeah.
The only title I want to give Sean Baker is GOAT. the GOAT.
No, I'm not the goat.
He is.
For all those listening who are in Josh's congregation, I am not the goat.
Sean is the GOAT. He's gonna come visit at some point, and he's gonna preach, and you're gonna be like, "Josh was right. He is the GOAT."
I'm not the goat. No.
So let's do takeaways. What's our takeaway? What's our lesson? What's our lesson from this cluster that has been this episode of Man Buns and Jesus?
I feel badly. Did I? I don't know. I just feel like I feel like this is just so scattered. Is this how it is? I feel like
hey, sometimes it is what it is.
This is poor communication on a topic on communication. This is.
You know what? I think there's we can say that was an intentional lesson.
This is not following a structure of any kind.
Oh,
welcome to the show.
So I'm sorry if I jumped in with questions and things.
No, you're good.
Takeaway.
Oh man. Oh, he's still my beating heart. Oh.
What's your takeaway? Do I need to start? Do you need time to gather yourself, Ben? Catch your breath.
I think my takeaway is that Sean just effectively communicated the entirety of this podcast in a nutshell. That we are terrible communicators attempting to communicate incredibly deep things, and we're communicating rather poorly. And yet we love doing this because it helps us communicate with one another how we are doing. And all of that is to say, we are both communicating poorly and effectively on this podcast, and it is one heck of a time.
I'm gonna let someone write their dissertation on trying to pick apart that sentence.
That was multiple sentences, Josh.
Whatever. My Sean, you got a takeaway?
Yeah.
If you want people to walk away from this podcast with one lesson, what do you got?
First, thanks for having me. This is fun. I think
I'm sorry.
I'm serious. It is a fun time. I think, yeah, a takeaway that people should know. All these pet peeves that we've talked about, other people could have different thoughts on them. We're not the end all be all. I don't think any of us went to school to be communication majors. But I will say, like, technology, especially with email and texting and FaceTiming, like all of that, in 10, 20 years is going to be a lot different. But, whatever technology comes our way with communication, value the face-to-face, value the in-person relationships, because ultimately that's how Jesus came to this world for us. He came in the form of a human, and I believe as a pastor, that's how he calls us to be witnesses for him in the world. So, yeah.
I think my takeaway is actually going to kind of echo Sean's a little bit, and that is it is important for us to be competent with technological communication. But it is so much more important for us to prioritize and be good at face-to-face communication. And that's why, for all those of you listening, because I see the statistics. We have listeners all over the country. We have a few in other countries. We're thrilled. We're thrilled that you're connected. One of them is Brazil, so I'm pretty sure it's like Alan or something.
Alan's still here. It's probably George,
yeah, or Lucas.
Georgie.
Anyway, so regardless of where you're listening, like, we're happy to have you on this podcast, to engage with you about different topics, but we are not your pastors. And my encouragement to you is that face-to-face communication is so important. Seek out a pastor near you who can provide that face-to-face communication, who, if you need a hospital visit, if you need someone to come pray with you, they can do that. Because as cool as it would be for this podcast to blow up and us to have thousands of listeners from all over the country, you need to have a pastor. And you need to have a pastor who is there for you in person. So that's my takeaways. That face-to-face personal communication is paramount. So time for the good old shameless plugs. Oh no, Ben's got
Before I do
a
that,
finger up.
I'm gonna give a legit takeaway here. And this is not so much my takeaway from our conversation today, but what I want people to actually take away from this podcast, this particular podcast, not Man Buns and Jesus as a whole. Because what I want them to take away from that is that they can't tell us what to do. For this particular podcast, I want people to know that no matter what like frustrations we are airing, no matter what sins we as pastors are preaching against, no matter what like efforts we are trying to do, no matter what missions we are trying to support, our priority as pastors is always the people right in front of us. Those of you who are in our pews on Sunday mornings or in our chairs on Sunday mornings, those of you who are willing to drop by the office and talk to me or talk to Josh or talk to Sean about life, like, we love you. As your pastor, we love you. We care for you. And let us communicate that to you here, that no matter how frustrated we get about your emailing skills, we will still love you.
Yeah, no number of reply alls can take my love away from you. That sounds like a parody of a Bible verse, but
or how frustrated they get by our communicating skills.
Yes,
it goes both ways, right?
That's so pastoral of you, Sean.
Yeah.
Anyway,
take the plank out of your own eye, right?
Yeah.
Shameless plug. Shameless plugs. First, we do have a Facebook page, so if you're a Facebook person, check us out on Facebook. That's also a way, if you're not personally connected to either Ben or myself, you can message the Facebook page, you can post on the Facebook page, and we'll see it, right? So if you have a topic suggestion, if you want to hear us talk about something or talk to somebody, you can either send it to one of us in person, or you can put it on the Facebook page and we'll see it and we'll do our best. And that kind of leads in, if you have topics, if you have something or someone you want us to talk about or talk to, let us know. We'll do it. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, let us know. There is a line forming though, so sooner rather than later. Ben, I wish I could just slap you through the camera, give you a good old V8, but let us know that you want to come on the show. I think we have 4 or 5 people in line, so you might have to wait a month or 2, but we'd be happy to have you on. And follow us on whatever your podcasting platform of choice is, because we're on all of them, again, except for Pandora, because they're still reviewing us. I don't know why. Whatever. That's Man Buns and Jesus. I'm out of plugs. We appreciate you listening, putting up with us for an hour. Brothers and sisters, enjoy the squeaky noise. Go in peace and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.